Dinky's ranch life. Lily tossed the bright red ball, and Dinky, all of 28 inches tall, charged after it with surprising speed. His tiny hooves kicked up little puffs of dust in the dry Texas soil. "Bring it back, Dinky." "Good boy," she called, her voice light with laughter. The miniature donkey, a study in stubbornness and boundless energy, stopped just short of her outstretched hand and proceeded to chew on the ball instead, his big brown eyes gleaming mischievously. Their ranch, affectionately nicknamed Dinky's Acres by Lily, was a modest spread. A small, weathered house sat nestled amongst sprawling mesquite trees, offering shade from the relentless sun. Beyond the house, a patchwork of fenced pastures stretched towards the horizon where the land met a sky so vast it seemed to swallow the world. The air, thick with the scent of dry grass and wildflowers, hummed with the drone of cicadas. Dinky wasn't just a pet, he was a companion, a confidant. Lily had rescued him from a neglectful breeder, and he'd repaid her kindness with unwavering loyalty and an endless supply of antics. He loved to follow her around the ranch, his tiny bray echoing in the stillness. He'd nudge her hand with his soft nose, demanding scratches, and if she ignored him for too long, he'd nibble playfully at her shirt. Today, though, his playful nips felt a little insistent. He circled her feet, braying louder than usual, then trotted towards the ranch's front gate, stopping to look back at her expectantly. Lily frowned. Dinky never went near the gate unless someone was there, or about to be. A prickle of unease crawled up her spine. She hadn't been expecting anyone. The new neighbor. Dust devils danced on the cracked asphalt as the U-Haul lumbered to a halt beside the prim, newly painted house next door. Agnes Crabtree emerged, a figure as starched and upright as the picket fence surrounding her postage-stamp lawn. She surveyed the rambling chaos of the ranch with undisguised disapproval, her thin lips pursing into a permanent frown. Dust motes swirled around Bess, the pot-bellied pig, as she snuffled happily near the property line, while a trio of goats browsed contentedly on the overgrown weeds. Agnes's eyes narrowed. A robin landed on the scarecrow, its cheerful song a stark contrast to the woman's rigid posture. "Good afternoon," I called, strolling over, Biscuit, the Great Pyrenees, lumbering alongside. "Welcome to the neighborhood." Agnes offered a curt nod, her gaze flickering from my worn boots to Biscuit's shaggy coat. "Agnes Crabtree," she stated, her voice as crisp as autumn leaves. "I trust your livestock are properly contained?" "Oh, mostly," I replied with a grin. "Bess has a soft spot for petunias, though. Just a heads up." Agnes's eyes widened slightly, landing on the pristine flower boxes adorning her porch. "Petunias," she repeated, the word laced with a hint of dread. "The butterfly chase." Dinky's nose twitched. Not with the usual barn dust, but a floral scent, sweet and unfamiliar. Then he saw it, a monarch with wings the color of sunset, flitting just beyond the fence. It danced in the air, a painted jewel beckoning him. He'd never seen anything so beautiful outside of his dreams. He nudged the lowest slat of the fence with his snout. Rottenwood splintered, creating a gap just big enough. "Freedom." He wriggled through, his stubby legs pumping, the taste of adventure suddenly sharper than any hay. The butterfly led him on a merry chase, over dry grass crackling under his hooves, past bewildered chickens clucking in protest at his intrusion. The monarch dipped, weaving a path toward a patch of impossibly green lawn. Dinky, utterly captivated, followed without hesitation. The grass felt cool and springy beneath him, a welcome change from the hard-packed earth of the ranch. He took another step, then another, lured deeper into this emerald paradise. The butterfly landed, its wings fluttering gently against a rose bush overflowing with blooms the color of, well, the color of the butterfly itself. He stretched his neck, mesmerized, ready for a closer look. A cast-iron gnome leered at him from the flower bed, but Dinky was too far gone to care. The lawn incident. Agnes froze on her porch, the watering can's dribble a metronome marking her surprise. A diminutive, earthy-toned creature cropped her immaculate lawn. No squirrel's darting tail, no rabbit's twitching nose. Something altogether stranger. She narrowed her gaze. A miniature donkey? Lily. The name, propelled from her lungs, shattered the tranquil morning like a dropped vase. "Remove that beast from my land." Lily shuffled into view, her expression clouding with dismay. Dinky, unfazed, chewed with gusto, a dandelion blossom plastered to his muzzle. "Morning, Agnes." He just sort of showed up. Showed up? Showed up. A wave of crimson flooded Agnes's face. "This is blatant trespass. Vandalism. I'm alerting the authorities." Frantically, she hunted for her cell, her hands fluttering like trapped birds. "Honestly, this is exactly the sort of thing the HOA is meant to prevent. Please, Agnes, he wouldn't hurt a fly." "I'm really sorry." "Dinky. Heel." Lily's voice, barely audible, was laced with apprehension, her eyes flickering around nervously. A gentle tug on the makeshift lead proved useless. Dinky was firmly planted, reveling in his unexpected feast. Harmless? Harmless? He's devouring my champion petunias. And depositing fertilizer. Agnes screeched, a trembling finger aimed at a pile of dark pellets nestled amongst the roses. Enough is enough. I'm dialing 911. We'll see how harmless he is when the sheriff arrives. Agnes jabbed at the screen, her features twisted into a mask of outrage. Lily's shoulders sagged, all animation draining from her face. The sun, moments ago welcoming, now felt like a punishing weight, the air heavy with the aroma of freshly mown grass and a sense of impending catastrophe. 911 call. Agnes stabbed a finger at the phone, her face a roadmap of pinched disapproval. I'm calling 911. This is ridiculous. Lily, perched on the arm of Grandpa Thompson's wingback chair, gasped. Agnes, no. That's extreme. Teddy, his brow furrowed, put down his book. He'd been trying to ignore the escalating situation, hoping it would diffuse naturally, but Agnes was a force of nature. 911, what is your emergency? The disembodied voice crackled from the phone. Yes, I'd like to report a dangerous animal, Agnes stated, her voice tight. It's trespassing on my property. A very large, unpredictable creature. Lily squeezed Grandpa Thompson's hand. He remained impassive, his gaze fixed on Agnes, a silent storm brewing behind his usually jovial eyes. Can you describe the animal, ma'am? Agnes puffed out her chest. It looks like a cow, but bigger. With horns. And it's loose. It could gore someone. Teddy sighed. He knew Dinky wouldn't hurt a fly, but try telling that to Agnes. And your location, ma'am? As Agnes rattled off their address, a siren wailed in the distance, growing steadily louder. Lily's eyes widened, mirroring the growing dread in Teddy's stomach. This was spiraling out of control and fast. The playful afternoon had morphed into a tense standoff, all thanks to a misplaced water buffalo and Agnes's unwavering commitment to chaos. The police arrive. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder until the black and white cruiser lurched to a stop in front of Agnes's manicured lawn. 2 officers emerged, blinking in the afternoon sun. Officer Miller, a young woman barely out of the academy, reached for her taser. Officer Davies, a grizzled veteran with a permanent squint, kept his hand resting on his holster. Agnes waved them over, her face a mask of righteous indignation. It's in the backyard. Some kind of beast. The officers exchanged a skeptical glance and cautiously followed Agnes through the gate. What they found wasn't a snarling mountain lion, but Dinky happily munching on a patch of clover. He lifted his head, his large brown eyes blinking innocently. Officer Miller lowered her taser, a slow smile spreading across her face. Ma'am, that's a donkey. A miniature donkey. Davies corrected, chuckling. He scratched Dinky behind the ears, earning a soft, contented bray. Agnes sputtered, her face turning a shade of red usually reserved for sunsets and emergency vehicles. I don't care what kind of donkey it is. It's trespassing. I demand you arrest it. Officer Davies straightened up, his expression hardening. Ma'am, with all due respect, we don't arrest donkeys. This is a civil matter. You need to speak to the animal's owner. I don't know who owns this 4-legged menace. Agnes shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at Dinky, who had resumed his clover buffet. That's why I called you. To take care of it. Senator Thompson steps in. The shouting intensified, Agnes's voice sharp enough to cut glass. Dinky whimpered, pressing closer to my leg. I felt a familiar warmth spread through my chest as the front door creaked open. Grandpa Teddy emerged, his tall frame silhouetted against the light spilling from the hallway. He wore his usual weekend uniform. Khaki pants, a faded blue polo shirt, and boat shoes. His silver hair was slightly mussed, as if he'd just woken from a nap. Agnes, is there a problem? His voice, though calm, carried an undeniable weight. Agnes whirled around, her face a mask of fury. This menace is trespassing, and harboring a dangerous animal. I demand you arrest him, officer. And that thing. She pointed a trembling finger at Dinky, who cowered behind me. Arrest him. One of the officers stepped forward, squinting at Grandpa. Ma'am, I think you need to calm down. He paused, his eyes widening in recognition. Wait a minute. Senator Thompson? Is that you, sir? Agnes sputtered, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Senator? What senator? He's just. She trailed off, confusion warring with outrage on her face. I could practically see the gears grinding in her head as she tried to reconcile the image of the disheveled man before her with the power and influence she associated with A.U.S. Senator. Community support. The air crackled with tension. Voices, sharp and accusatory, bounced off the manicured lawns. Dinky, sensing the unrest, whined and pressed against Lily's leg. Senator Thompson, his face etched with concern, raised a hand. Everyone, please. Let's take a breath. I understand there are concerns, but let's address them calmly and respectfully. His voice, though firm, held a soothing quality that gradually quieted the crowd. Word spread through the community like wildfire. Mrs. Gable from number 12, who usually only communicated through meticulously crafted passive-aggressive notes about lawn maintenance, was now on her phone, animatedly sharing the story with anyone who would listen. Mr. Henderson, the retired history teacher, started drafting a petition in support of Lily and Dinky. Even the perpetually grumpy old Mr. Abernathy was seen muttering something about neighborly duty as he trimmed his prize-winning roses. The idea for a welcome to the neighborhood parade blossomed organically. It started with a few suggestions on the community's online forum and quickly snowballed. Children offered to decorate their bikes, Mrs. Gable volunteered to bake cookies, and Mr. Henderson promised to provide historical context, somehow weaving Dinky into the tapestry of American folklore. Senator Thompson, watching the flurry of activity with a warm smile, knew that even the most tightly knit communities occasionally needed a little nudge to remember what truly mattered: acceptance and compassion. He turned to Lily. Well, looks like Dinky's about to become the Grand Marshal. A change of heart. The welcome to the neighborhood parade was underwhelming. Agnes watched from her perfectly manicured lawn, arms crossed, as a handful of children on bicycles adorned with streamers that clashed horribly wobbled past. Senator Thompson, or Teddy as everyone insisted on calling him, strolled alongside them, a hand resting gently on the shoulder of a little girl whose tire seemed perpetually on the verge of giving out. Dinky, surprisingly well-behaved, trotted beside him, a tiny American flag clipped to his collar. Agnes felt a pang of something she couldn't quite name, a strange mix of guilt and envy. The next day, Agnes found herself at the Happy Paws animal shelter. The air was thick with the scent of disinfectant and wet fur, a far cry from her lavender-scented home. A wiry woman with a name Ag that read Brenda showed her around, explaining the feeding schedules and cleaning protocols. Agnes started small, refilling water bowls and sweeping floors. She was surprised to find a quiet satisfaction in the work, a sense of purpose she hadn't realized she was missing. Later that week, armed with a bag of carrots, Agnes cautiously approached the Thompson ranch. Dinky, sensing her presence, perked up his ears and trotted to the fence line. Agnes held out a carrot. Dinky sniffed it tentatively, then gently took it from her hand. Teddy emerged from the barn, a smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. He seems to like you, he said, his voice warm. He's usually wary of strangers. Agnes watched as Dinky crunched happily on the carrot, feeling a warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the afternoon sun. Maybe, just maybe, she was starting to understand.